Okay, I think we're live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Agoura Hills City Council meeting of January 28th, 2026. At this time, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices. If you wish to speak or submit a written comment, please complete a comment card for each agenda item and submit to the city clerk prior to the public comment portion of the item. I will now call this meeting to order. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement. The City of Agoura Hills acknowledges that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Chumash Nation. Descendants of the Chumash still remain, and we honor and pay our respects to their elders and various groups that make up past, present, and emerging as they continue their stewardship of the lands and water. We have a responsibility and a commitment to elevate the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Agoura Hills, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. Tonight, we are thrilled to be joined by Cub Scout Pack 227 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Cub Scout Pack 227, take it away.
Attention. Will the audience please rise? Color guard advance. Hand salute. Those not in uniform, please put your right hand over your heart. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard salute. 2. Color guard dismissed. The audience may be seated.
Thank you, and fantastic job, Cub Scout Pack 227. Thank you, guys. We're now moving on to roll call. I will defer to the city clerk.
Good evening, Councilmember Anderson, Councilmember Anstead, Councilmember Sylvester.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein-Lopez.
Here.
Mayor Wolf.
Here.
Mayor Wolf, you have a quorum.
There was no closed session held tonight, so there's no report of closed session. Now moving on to the approval of the agenda. Will the maker of the motion and second to approve the agenda state your name?
Councilmember Sylvester moves to approve the agenda.
Councilmember Anstead seconds.
Now defer to city clerk.
Councilmember Anderson, Councilmember Anstead,
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein-Lopez.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval 5-0.
Thank you. We have no presentations this evening, so we're moving on to the Intergovernmental Special Purpose Committee and departmental reports. To kick us off, I'm asking for a update from the COG. Councilmember Sylvester?
Yes, we had our annual reorganization, and Ray Pearl from Westlake Village is now the president, and Marianne Riggins from Malibu is the vice president for 2026. We're making progress on the contract for the fiber network, so that's great because it's taken a couple of years, but we seem to finally be getting some speed up there. And the other thing is that I'm still going to be the spokesman for all the COG cities for the Zone Zero board forestry meetings. And that's it, really.
Thank you, Councilmember Sylvester, and thank you for your year of service as president of the COG. Now moving on to the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy Advisory Committee update. I'll now defer to Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Wolf. I have a handful of updates from our meeting on Monday, actually. So first, we heard a presentation from the folks at the Conservancy. They had a significant grant from the Pritzker Foundation to put up a series of benches in the Santa Monica Mountains. So we heard about the Grateful Bench Project, and it was just a fantastic reminder of the power of public-private partnerships to then support public entities. We also heard a presentation from the Community Nature Connection, which is a nonprofit that basically does science and environmental education for both at-risk youth and just youth in general who are interested in the environment. We gave a grant to approved a grant to the Ventura County Fire Department for fire prevention work. And the neat thing about that was that it was just a reminder of how thoughtful the prevention work really needs to be. We need to balance the environment. We need to make sure that we're not just clear cutting everything, while at the same time making sure that we are doing what we can to reduce the fuel that will otherwise fuel, no pun intended, these wildfires that are surely headed our way again. We heard a presentation from the National Park Service about being the very first field site for the paleontology field school. They had, it was super, super cool. They brought students out for a week in our Santa Monica Mountains for a model that will be across the nation, I believe, if not at least just within our region. And Jody was super proud that the first one was here. And then last but not least, our parks are being reopened, and we heard a presentation from our state parks representative that they are going to have 2 work days, also funded through a private donation. They're going to have 2 work days where they will meet at Topanga State Park and then do trail cleanup and help with the trail reopening. One is February 7th, and the other is March 7th, both at 8:30 in the morning. Peter and I, my husband and I, are out of town for the March 7th, for this February 7th one, but I checked with him, my big hiker husband, and we will be hosting, Peter and I will be hosting and then leading a delegation of folks who might be interested in helping go down to Topanga State Park and help reopen the trails. So let me know if those watching, those in the audience, anybody who's interested in coming and helping refurbish the trails at Topanga State Park, would love to have you.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. Moving on, are there any reports from staff? Seeing or hearing none, are there any other reports from City Council? Moving on to public comments. This section is reserved for individuals wishing to speak on items not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. If you have materials to distribute to the Council, please do not approach the dais. Instead, provide them to the City Clerk for distribution on your behalf. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and a speaker's time may not be transferred to another speaker. Individuals addressing the council shall refrain from disorderly conduct that disrupts or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. I will now defer to the City Clerk.
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence. We do have one speaker card. Jennifer Miller.
Seeing me, and perhaps if you would actually accomplish something, I wouldn't have to come back here for the same thing every single time that I come. I emailed Amy, I think 2 weeks ago, about kids in the park going down the steps from the top of Forest Cove Park into the playground. It was a beautiful Saturday. There were toddlers running back and forth in front of the steps. One kid made it down the steps. The other one, I had to tell him, you are not going down these steps. And a couple coming up with their little, maybe 2-year-old, thanked me for preventing that, because they were coming up as that kid was about to fly down. That is not my job to tell that kid that you are not going down these steps. That is your job. And I don't know what you're doing about this situation, but there's still not a sign in the park. There is still nothing being done. I've actually contacted an attorney to see if I could sue you. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I can't until I actually get hurt. But you are just waiting for that to happen, and nobody is doing anything. Oh, the council has the this, and they have to do that, and they have to do this. How about an emergency meeting to put up the signs, to get the security, to do whatever you need to do? It's enough already. And every day there's somebody calling, and I sent also Amy, I don't know, it was a screenshot from next door or somebody complaining again. Everybody hates these stupid kids on their stupid bikes and their stupid parents, and I'm sorry if one of these people in here is a parent. They are out of control. I saw one today in the park doing wheelies up by the picnic tables in Forest Cove. It's every single day. I'm tired of it. And then I find that the city council is asking for a raise. How dare you ask for a triple amount of money raise when you can't accomplish the most simple thing? It's enough already. Where's the emergency meeting to address this? I started talking to Amy about this 1 year ago. It's still nothing has changed. Not one single thing has changed. And I don't know, I have a question for all of you. I know you're not allowed to speak, but you can raise your hand. Who here knows the rules on the gas shutoff meters? Who actually knows the rules? You know the rules. Does anyone else? No. If you're not, first of all, even if you make a rule and you don't tell the citizens or the contractors, realtors, then what good is a rule? There is a rule, and I'm the one that got it implemented, if it even exists. I was told it does. I got this rule implemented after calling the city month after month after month for 2 years, a rule that could actually save lives regarding gas shutoff.
Please wrap up your comments.
Okay, this is more important than this red light.
No, it's not.
Again, you see, you abdicate all responsibility because of a timer.
The rules. So thank you. Your time is up.
I'm a rule breaker. This problem.
Thank you. Do we have any other public speakers?
We do not.
Thank you. We're now moving on to the consent calendar. This section is reserved for persons to speak on items on the consent calendar. I will now defer to the city clerk.
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence, nor do we have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Are there any questions from city council on the consent calendar? Seeing or hearing none, I will now call for a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion
Will the maker of the motion and the second state your name?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar. Deborah Klein Lopez.
City Councilman Chris Anstead seconds.
I will now defer to the city clerk for roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Anstead.
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval 5-0.
Thank you. We're now moving on to public hearing item number 5. Our next item is to conduct a public hearing to consider waiving full reading and introduction of ordinance number 26-48, amending Chapter 9 of Article 2 of the Agoura Hills Municipal Code to adjust compensation for city council members. I will now open up the public hearing and defer to City Manager Nathan Hamburger for staff presentation. And I apologize, as it's ordinance number 26-484. Okay. So I will now defer to City Manager Nathan Hamburger for the staff presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. Tonight's item is a follow-up from a public discussion held in November 2025. So with the passage of Senate Bill 329, elected officials of general law municipal agencies were provided a guideline to address compensation, which has not been kept up with inflation over the years, and in the case of the city of Agoura Hills, has not been adjusted since 1986. Senate Bill 329, the purpose behind it was really to help city councils become more diverse and to allow for individuals to serve as public servants across all income levels. Under the provisions of Senate Bill 329, cities with populations up to 35,000 may have a maximum monthly salary of $950. After discussion at the City Council meeting of November 12th, staff was provided direction to bring back an ordinance for consideration to set monthly salary compensation at $850, which should be noted as below the allowed maximum. Senate Bill 329 provides direction on how any future salary changes would occur and would need to occur, and to assist for future inflationary impacts. It should also be noted that the change in compensation would not occur until after the formal certification of the November 2026 election. The recommendation is to conduct a public hearing, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 26-484. And that will conclude my report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Before we move on to public comment, does any council have any questions of staff?
I have lots.
Please, Councilmember Anderson.
So, City Manager Hamburger, thank you so much for that presentation. And thank you also for the homework that we've been doing together about this. So my first question, we did a whole goals workshop for this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, and we did not anticipate this. And when we were doing our goals workshop, there were numbers in this range that we weren't able to do. So my first question is, will we have to make any cuts if the City Council approves this tonight? Would we have to make any cuts in the budget in other places in order to be able to implement this salary increase?
That's a good question. And at this point, I would say no. And the reason is we've had some reductions in expenditures and as well as some revenues where things have balanced out. You will be looking at the mid-cycle budget review coming up. And so if this is approved, that number would be included in the budget. I don't anticipate bringing back any cuts for that, but should things change, should the world fall apart, any of those things could happen, we would bring back recommendations for cuts. And it is something, if adopted, the council could elect, just like anything that the city does, to defer cost or to decline those, that pay.
And thank you for that, and let me double click on that, because what I understand you saying is that we could vote in favor of this tonight, but and the world is a less predictable place than it has been in my entire lifetime. So we could approve this tonight, and when you come back to us with the mid-year budget review in roughly December, if things have changed and it looks like we would have to make other cuts, the council could decide at that point to not implement this salary increase.
They could, just as they could any other expenditures, or we could delay projects. There's a lot of things, and sometimes timing doesn't work out on the project, so those get changed. So there'll be a variety of options. If there's any change in our economic forecast, we'll provide all of those to you, this being included, but I want to just say that it encompasses everything would be on the table.
Okay, and then another question that I've got is, other jurisdictions, certainly around the country and even very close to home, are facing very dire financial times. And at some level, with that awareness, I had this sense of being concerned about Agoura Hills taking on an added risk. Can you talk to us a little bit about where Agoura Hills is financially? Like, some people are in some jurisdictions are in very dire circumstances. How would you describe where we are financially?
I would say we're very balanced in the sense of we've got our revenue sources, although I think when we bring our report, and not to jump too far ahead, I think there's been some slight decreases, but again, we've cut back on some expenditures, so we've been able to balance everything. And that's been typically the way the city has operated. Without any big boxes and larger retailers, we've had to be a little more creative in how we do things, but I think that the city council has taken an approach over the years to be conservative, so we have very strong reserves should that rainy day come. And again, that's a worst case scenario. Yeah. But I think we've always been able to balance things, and so I feel like we're very stable at this point. I don't think we're overly staffed. I don't think we've taken on projects that we can't afford. I think the council's made priorities and decisions that have left us in a strong financial position. So I feel good telling you that we're stable. Yeah. Is it the best we've ever been? No. Is it the worst we've ever been? No. But I believe that we're in a good spot.
So thank you for that. And let me just reflect back, because I think it's a really important point. What I'm hearing you say is that we're steady state, that, it's a bit of a sine wave as as many things in the world are, and we're certainly not at the highest point, but we're not at the lowest point, and we're not at a place where we are looking at cutbacks or looking at reductions in our expenditures in this moment.
Yeah, that's correct. We are not.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
No more questions? No more questions? So the public hearing is open. I will now defer to the city clerk for public comments.
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence, nor do we have any speaker cards.
Before closing the public hearing, Do any council members have any further questions of staff? Seeing none, there being no further questions, I will now close the public hearing. We will now move on to deliberations, and to start off, I'm going to start with Councilmember Penny Sylvester, who helped spearhead.
Thank you. The reason I wanted us to consider this is that there has been no increase in 40 years. When it was set 40 years ago, the purchasing power was 3 times less than it is today. And I think that's why the state, passed this ordinance to say that cities should re-examine the stipend that they pay to council members for all the time that they put in on city council, because as our Nate Hamburger, our city manager, said, we do want to make the position of a council member open to anybody in the city, and we don't want to make it a financial hardship if you have to pay for babysitters, if you have to take time off from work, because you are doing a public service. And it's not so much us as individuals, but the office that we represent that we're honoring with advancing the stipend after 40 years. And I am grateful to our city manager and all our city staff that we are in a stable financial position. Thank you to Diego for all your financial support. And we haven't had to cut any programs, we haven't had to cut any positions. So we're not decimating any programs that exist, but we're moving forward, and we will be planning for this as the years go on, and hopefully this will encourage more people to consider running for city council. So I do think that after 40 years, it is time to do this increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sylvester. I will now move on to Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Councilmember Sylvester, for bringing this, and thank you, Mayor Wolf. As you all probably remember, when this was first brought up, I was very, very uncomfortable with this. And I, as my mentor taught me, said, I'm not going to make up my mind, though, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and ask people. And so I did. And I was pleasantly surprised that to a person, with one person who's a little bit political, who's like, well, this is going to encourage too many people to run for office that we might not want to. But he was mostly joking about that and did come back. And the folks that I spoke to have very much the reaction that Councilmember Sylvester put forward, that we haven't raised the compensation for city council in 40 years. It has not kept pace with inflation. And while honestly, I don't personally think that this is going to be the deciding factor for folks in whether they run for office, nor would I want it to be, because, my husband's joking, like even with this increase, we spend a fair amount of time on this, but it can make, and it was somebody else who gave exactly the example that you gave, Mayor Sylvester, is, maybe it would allow somebody to afford childcare, and maybe that could then just be the little nudge that allows increased diversity to be on this council. And that is very, very compelling to me. It was the reason that the state legislature put this law on the books, is to be able to increase diversity. It's something that I very much value as a part of Agoura Hills and as a part of the city council. So I did my homework with talking to constituents, and that calmed my concerns. And then, as you could tell from my questioning, I drilled Nate, Mayor Hamburger, I'm sorry, not Mayor, City Manager Hamburger, just to make sure, because that was the other piece that I was concerned about, is this the right time to be doing this? And the final thing that really gives me a whole lot of comfort is 2 things. One, it was, we don't have to be making any cuts to do this, that we are able to do this in a way, both in this next fiscal year and in ongoing fiscal years, it fits into our budget without having to make any cuts in things that we otherwise care about. And let's be honest, this world is upside down right now, right? So what is happening today may look very different next week. So I'm also very reassured that we will have an opportunity, when we have a better picture of the numbers in December, to be able to say, okay, hold on a second, the world has turned upside down, and we are going to have to make, if we keep the salary increase, we are going to have to make cuts in other places. And we will then have a choice to say, no, 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 what's more important to us is the services to the city that the city is relying on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. I'll move on to Councilmember Anstead.
I appreciate the comments from my fellow council members. My thought on this is first of all, the salary for a city council person, I want to say it out loud, is like 300, is it 360 currently or $300 currently? So I just want to make sure the public's aware of what we're currently getting paid, $300 times 12 a year, basically, for our service here. So, and then the increase would be, has not been adjusted for 40 years. The inflation that happened over that, the amount of money that we're pegging it below what the inflationary rate would be over the 40 years. So I'm very comfortable, I think, making that adjustment. The other thing I appreciate is Councilwoman Anderson talking about is if we had a financial crisis here in the city, of course, as a city council person, I would be very open to revisiting and taking no salary if we were in dire financial straits. And that's something that's always on the table. And so I'm definitely comforted by that as well. And so I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you to my fellow council members for your thoughtful and spot-on comments. As I mentioned the last time we chatted this, even with the increase, nobody's getting rich being a city council member in Agoura Hills. I mean, the increase in salary, if you want to call it that, is not to, nobody's going to be flooding our ballots because of this increase. It's, to me, takes the edge off of some of the expenses that we may have to incur as public servants. I think people don't realize that when you serve on a council such as this, it's not just sitting up here twice a month when there are council meetings. It's a lot of time all month long, especially if you're mayor and the face of the city, as all of us and someday will know. We go to ribbon cuttings, we have committee meetings. Today we were doing a tour of the Lady Face Greenway. There's a lot that is done. And as I mentioned, my job before was to work in the state assembly paid by taxpayer dollars. So I had to actually take vacation, which of course I ran out of quickly. And so I actually took pay cuts to be able to serve on this council, because every time we had a committee meeting that was between 9 and 5, I had to take time off of my day job. We have people with small children on the council. So, again, to me, this isn't to anything of excess. It's really just to take the edge off of some of those hardships that council members may face. I have no skin in this game because it's very likely that I will not be sitting on this council when this implementation takes place. It's at the next election period, and there are other things on my plate. But so I have no personal skin in the game. But I want to read something that I think is very important that came straight from the legislature. Referencing that nothing's been changed for 40 years. And it says that this bill passed to allow cities to adjust their compensation for inflation, which will help councils become more diverse, because increased compensation can help individuals from across different income levels receive sufficient income from their service to help ensure that they can continue to serve the public and support their families. So that really spoke to me about making sure that these positions are open to everyone. They're open to young people with children. They're open to people of all income ranges. And so I appreciate the conversation. I also appreciate that we're not at the max. That's very Agoura Hills-ish. We don't like to be at the max. We like to just be in the middle and stable, as we discussed. So I served on a board many years ago during the recession around 2008, and it was a nonprofit, and there was a staff that for a year took no salary. It was really rough, but they believed in their organization and they took no salary, and that was staff. So I think it's absolutely available to us that if we are in a really, really rough time and need to revisit this, it's something future councils can absolutely do. So I also agree with Councilmember Anderson that, you know, it should be part of our budget review so that if something is unexpected pops up, you know, again, it's something we can review before it takes into account. So I'm happy to follow the lead of my other council members and ready to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate the very eloquent and thoughtful comments from this council. I can make all the findings. I think that this is important to provide an opportunity for people who might not have financial flexibility, as much financial flexibility to get involved in government. And as it's been said, it's not going to make anybody rich, but it could be a cushion and it could help a little bit. This hasn't been changed since before I was born, as has been mentioned. I think anything that hasn't been changed, I think 6 years before I was born. And so I think it is time, and the time is now. Yeah. Sorry about that. I had a good thing, and then we. But I do want to thank Councilmember Sylvester for her work on this. It's not an easy thing to do, but we are not taking from any services. The city is in a good position, and I appreciate how it was articulated. If there is an issue in the future, this is absolutely something that we can be the first thing to revisit. So with that, I am comfortable to make all the findings, and I will now call for a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation. Do I need to read?
Councilmember Sylvester so moves.
Councilmember Anderson seconds.
Thank you. I will now defer to the city clerk for roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Anstead.
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval 5-0.
Thank you. Now moving on to public hearing item number 6. Our next item is to conduct a public hearing to consider the adoption of resolution number 26-2124, approving Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, programs and project for the 52nd program year. I will now open the public hearing and defer to the Director of Community Services, Amy Brink, for the staff presentation.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Wolf and honorable council members. This evening, staff is presenting for consideration the city's use of allocated community development block grant funds for the upcoming 26-27 fiscal year. Each year, community development block grant funds are allocated to cities by the Federal Housing and Urban Development Department, HUD, and administered through the Los Angeles County Development Authority, LACDA. Funding for the Los Angeles Urban County CDBG program is administered by the number of participating cities, as well as cities' need to provide housing, economic and social service, and community development opportunities that principally benefit seniors and persons of low and moderate income, along with certain public projects for compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. Most recently, the City Council allocated CDBG funds for this past fiscal year toward the Morrison Park ADA Path of Travel Improvements Project, in addition to the annual allotment for senior social services classes being offered through the Department of Community Services. These classes include various services such as caregiver support, health care, and finances, and are provided by Senior Concerns via virtual meetings. At the Community Services Subcommittee meeting on December 11th, back in 2025, staff presented recommendations for consideration. As a result, staff was directed to continue the ongoing support of the Senior Services Program and to roll over the remaining CDBG funds to be used on a future project. Should the City Council approve resolution number 26-2124, the city would then submit to the LACDA for final project approval. There is no fiscal impact for the current fiscal year, 2025-26. Today's request is to appropriate CDBG funds for the upcoming fiscal year 2026-27, which total $69,593. Staff respectfully asks that you conduct a public hearing for consideration on approving Resolution 26-2124, the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG programs and projects for the 56th program year and for the 2026-27 fiscal year. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for the report. Before we move on to public comment, does any council members have any questions from staff? Seeing or hearing none, I will now defer to the city clerk for public comments.
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence, nor do we have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Before closing the public hearing, do any council members have any further questions of staff? There being no further questions, I will now close the public hearing. We will now move on to deliberations. I'm going to go in reverse order. Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Thank you. Always love to see CDBG funds on the agenda. Such a wonderful and, for the most part, stable source of funding for our city that goes to such amazing programs, and always particularly our senior social service programs. So, as always, very supportive of using these funds for this manner, and ready to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Anstead.
I'm definitely in favor of this. I was on the subcommittee and reviewed it earlier. I think using the funds, we've used some of the funds for the playground, the handicap playground. I think that's fantastic. And then also for our senior services. So I'm very happy with this and ready to move forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Council members, that this is a joy to approve. It's wonderful to see these funds coming in, and the proposed expenditures are right in line with Agoura Hill's priorities. So I am thrilled to be able to vote yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Sylvester.
I agree with all my fellow council members, and I would just like to call out Senior Concerns for all their support over the years. They do a fantastic job. I know they certainly helped my mother many years ago when she needed it. So I really appreciate that we're working with them. So I'm ready to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I too am ready to proceed. I think it's fantastic, and it's 52 years of this. It's a great program, and look forward to this next year. I want to thank the subcommittee too for your work on this. So thank you. So I will now call for a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation.
City Councilman Chris Anstead, I'll make a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
I'll second. Deborah Klein Lopez.
I will now defer to the city clerk for a roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Anstead.
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to discussion action item number 7. Our next item is a discussion to consider the 2026 solid waste rate adjustment, or SWRA, request from Waste Management. I will now defer to Assistant City Manager Ramiro Adeva for the staff presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. And Honorable Mayor and members of the council, I wanted to start today's discussion with a little caveat. I think it's common knowledge that there are a couple of conversations going on, right? So we have with WM. And so we have a conversation about tonight's item, which is the solid waste rate adjustment, which we're going to be focusing on with this presentation. We also have an ongoing conversation about the franchise agreement. And so I just wanted to make sure that we keep it very clear and focused today that the franchise agreement discussion is not something we're focused on today at all. That will be a discussion for a future council meeting, and there's still lots to be discussed there. But I know that, in talking WM in general, that's easy to kind of go back and forth. And so I want to make sure that, I'm going to do my best to stay focused, to have this presentation really focused on what's at hand today, which is the SWRA, or the solid waste rate adjustment. So with that said, we are here to consider the 2026 solid waste rate adjustment, otherwise known as the SWRA, request from Waste Management. All right, so a little bit of background. The city currently has a franchise agreement with WM for exclusive residential solid waste service. The agreement outlines 2 allowances for possible rate adjustments to be considered on an annual basis. I say possible because even though the CPI is essentially a guarantee, it still needs to be requested each year to be given. The SWRA, on the other hand, is discretionary and is the primary focus of tonight's item. So first, some general information regarding these 2 rate increase mechanisms. For the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, the franchise agreement is specific to it being for the 12-month period ending September 30th of each year. So when the tables come out in mid-October on the Department of Labor and Statistics website, the CPI is confirmed. So the franchise agreement also puts a cap of 3% on any one year. So for this particular time frame, the CPI is 3.198%, which is then limited to a maximum of 3% for this year per the franchise agreement cap. All right, so for the SWRA, once again, that is discretionary. It does recognize that operational costs are subject to increases over time and can cover things such as vehicle fuel, equipment repair and maintenance, landfill disposal and processing, and tipping fees. Documentation is required to be submitted each year from WM demonstrating actual increases in operational costs. That documentation is reviewed and confirmed with the help of SWS, Kim Nilsson over here, which is our city solid waste consultant. So let's look specifically at the requests being made. We touched on the CPI earlier, that's an easy one. For the purpose of this particular time frame, once again, the CPI has been confirmed at 3.198%. However, in the franchise agreement, as I mentioned, there is a cap of the CPI to be no more than a 3% increase annually. So therefore, the CPI given for this year will be 3%. The SWRA review is more procedural in that it looks at calculations and supporting documentation for the requested rate adjustment due to operational cost increases and has a number of qualitative compliance requirements that need to be confirmed as well. For the qualitative compliance, the franchise agreement explicitly mentions numbers 1 through 3 on the screen right here, while number 4 and 5 were added during last year's consideration of the SWRA request. So for numbers 1 through 3, those were covered in detail in the attachment number 1 of the staff report, which is the memo prepared by SWS. But to summarize it, overall, WM continues to do good work serving the community of Agoura Hills. They are responsive to customers and they resolve matters quickly. They've complied with all provisions of the franchise agreement, including meeting state mandated diversion requirements. For number 4, which was one of the ones that was added in a previous SWRA discussion, the council wanted to see consistent focus each year with regard to advertising and promoting the senior discount program. In conversations with WM, that's been happening with promoting it online, and along with a mix of in-person events to promote the senior discount program. And number 5, in terms of having targeted outreach and education specific to the organics program, in discussions with WM, they've continued to do that through outreach flyers and social media posts. Now for the operational cost increases. So WM's documentation included explanation of the primary cost drivers being increases to landfill and organics gate rate tipping fees. WM does use 2 primary landfill locations, those being Simi Valley Landfill and the Calabasas Landfill, for both trash and organics, while recycling is taken care of at the Sun Valley Recycling Park. SWS did review the supporting documentation from WM and determined it to be mathematically correct. However, it's important to note that not all requested increases can be implemented because of the MFN provision, which we'll get into in the next slide. Before I go on to the next slide, though, I do want to note a couple of things that were brought up at the Public Works Subcommittee. One of those notes is that the Simi Valley Landfill is owned and operated by WM, though rates are controlled by the county, so I want to make sure that that's clear. Another one of the notes that was brought up in the meeting was when waste from Agoura Hills is taken to the Simi Valley landfill, there is a surcharge that's applied for non-Ventura County waste. So our waste that goes out there does experience a surcharge because we are coming from LA County going into Ventura County. And then also the subcommittee had asked, and again, we're going to have a future slide that talks a little bit more about the subcommittee, and of course the subcommittee members can speak for themselves. But one of the things that did come up, the committee asked us to do, was to go back and look at the Calabasas landfill and try to get an estimate on how many remaining years of life there were for that landfill. And so we did receive a copy of a report from the Los Angeles County Sanitation District stating that as of October of 2025, there was a projected remaining site life of approximately 6 to 9 years. Okay, so we're going to get into the most favored nation, also known as the most favored cities provision, but we'll call it the MFN for short. The franchise agreement does talk about this, and it requires that Agoura Hills rates to not exceed comparable neighboring cities. And the current franchise agreement does list what are the cities to be used in that comparison. It does talk about Calabasas, Westlake, Hidden Hills, and Malibu. But the important note there is that in terms of comparison, they need to be comparable. And when you look at Hidden Hills and Malibu, they just aren't comparable. Hidden Hills is just, it's not the same kind of service, and Malibu actually doesn't even have a franchise agreement. So for the purposes of applying an MFN with comparable cities, that's why we use Calabasas and Westlake Village. Okay, so the Public Works Subcommittee. That's comprised of Mayor Jeremy Wolf and Councilmember Kate Anderson. It was held on December 8th of 2025. At that time, the committee was presented with two options, or scenarios, I'll say. One of the scenarios was a request that WM was making, which essentially was a proposed 2026 rate that would be calculated by taking the current 2025 rate plus the CPI plus the operational cost changes. So initially what they did was they said, okay, if the city is open to paying us for what are our operational increases to municipal solid waste, to recycling, to organics, this is the fee that we would need in order to make ourselves whole in 2026. So that was one. And then the other scenario was more in line or consistent with what what previous councils have agreed to in the past as it relates to the SWRA. And that's taking the 2025 rate, adding the CPI, and then adding 3%. So I will say that the first scenario is in excess of the 3% that is the second option. So when you add the operational cost changes, that is a scenario that's more than the second. So as I show on the slide here, there's an asterisk which says that it's the second one, the 2025 rate plus the CPI plus 3%, which was the preferred subcommittee option, and it was consistent with previous council's approvals. So in summary, the 2026 rates look like this. The rates reflect, again, the 2025 rates plus the 3% CPI. The request was made, so it's 3% because of the cap. Even though it's 3.198, it's going to be 3%, plus recommended 3% SWRA where allowed. The most favored nations limits apply to select service levels, and this is an exclusive residential contract or an exclusive residential franchise agreement, so it's not commercial. The fiscal impact of this decision, there's no impact to the 25-26 adopted budget. WM bills the customers directly, and these rates are going to be, if approved by the council, the rates are retroactively put into effect dating back to January 1st of this month. So the recommendations, to summarize again, is that we respectfully request the council consider Waste Management's request for an additional solid waste rate adjustment and provide direction to the staff regarding the approval, modification, or denial of the requested SWRA increase for 2026. And with that, I do have Kim Nilsson here from SWS, and I also can look in the audience, and we do have a couple of members from WM here to help answer any questions. So I'll turn it back over to you, Honorable Mayor.
Thank you for that very thorough presentation. Before we move on to public comment, does any council members have any questions of staff? I saw Mayor Pro Tem shake her head first, so start with you for questions.
Thank you. Shake my head first. I have two questions. And one of them is maybe for waste management, but actually, the first one is, can you go back to the piece about the surcharge if our waste is taken over to Simi versus Calabasas? Is there any rhyme or reason as to why our waste would go to one over the other? Is it like how does that work? How does it?
We as a city do not direct where the waste has to go. So it's chosen by Waste Management on where they haul their waste. So we don't establish that. And also the county of Ventura established the out-of-county rate. So that additional surcharge that you're speaking of was established by the county of Ventura.
Okay, so then I guess my question is for WM then. Why would you haul our waste further into Simi with a surcharge if Calabasas is closer and more financially, fiduciarily acceptable for us?
So we do utilize Calabasas landfill, especially for organics. But as you know, the Calabasas landfill is stretched for its time. It is reaching its capacity, and the rates are not guaranteed. They have the ability to raise your rates mid-year. It's not a consistent rate like we're able to provide. And $20 on paper isn't the same, or even with the surcharge, isn't the same as what it would cost when we internalize things and when we move things through the WM facilities, the WM system. So it's not that we don't utilize it, but we can't guarantee capacity there, their timing, their days, and what our travel time would be sitting in line. So there's a lot of different elements that set into our rates that just aren't on paper.
So when is it decided where, so my trash was picked up this morning,
So
Wednesday. So when is it determined where that trash will go?
I think there's a lot of variables. Routing, I mean, we run over 56 routes in the city, so depending on where those routings are going, what the materials are, and what's going to be acceptable for that day or that load determines where those loads end up. It's really an operational ideal, and we could certainly look into that and answer that in much more detail for you.
And then comparing the LA County versus the Ventura County rates, without the surcharge, are those rates, you're saying, I guess I don't understand how are they comparable?
So it's about a $20 difference when you're looking at your gate rates. So going into the Simi Valley landfill, you're looking at a little over $100, and when you're going into Calabasas, it's about $20 less.
I see.
And given the commodity, there is different price groups for trash
Right,
recycling. So
right.
therefore, and the utilization of Calabasas is because we have that relationship with Agoura as well.
So the 100 versus 80 is with the surcharge? Or you're saying that's without the surcharge?
From the rate sheets, it appears that those fees are all set in with the pricing that is provided. I'd have to review those rate sheets for you.
Okay.
Go ahead. I do have a question related to this.
Yeah,
Is that
please,
an okay
please.
thing to
I
do?
mean, fine with me if it's fine with you, Mayor.
Fine with me. Thank you.
So thank you for this, and as Assistant City Manager Arata mentioned, this was a question that we had at the subcommittee as well. And while I understand we as the city can't determine where our waste is, you are asking us for increases because of your operational costs. And you know that we as the city, as the subcommittee approved of that. So I am comfortable going forward and really glad that we are beginning to dig into that. But I'm curious, I heard you say that it's just a $20 difference. What we have in our report from SWS is that the CME for refuse and trash is $9 a ton, whereas Calabasas is $3.79 a ton. So that seems...
Those were the increases. Those are the increases, not their gate rates. So, I'm sorry.
A fairly significant increase, like a very big difference between those two, though.
There probably is a bigger variable there, but in looking very quickly at the rate sheets to compare the two, the overall difference between one gate rate over the other, less the surcharge, is where that money lies. And in that money lies operational costs, distance, staff, fuel, and all of those. So I can't speak to the Ventura County rates as well as I would like to, and I certainly can't speak to the LA County rates, but that is something that we can certainly come back to you with in regards to that. But I don't think that we do it at a detriment. We certainly do utilize the Calabasas landfill, but given its life and unpredictability of it, it's easier for us to depend on something that we actually can depend on, which is WM's facility in Simi.
And I welcome your deeper looking into it. I heard you say like looking quickly at the rate, so I appreciate your willingness.
Sure.
And you expressed this at, you and your shop expressed this at the subcommittee, the willingness to go more deeply into explaining a little bit more about why you would choose to pay what feels like significantly more. And there may be very good reasons, and as you said, you haven't had yet a chance to go back and come up with those very good reasons, so I look forward to that opportunity to, when that's.
Thank you.
And then just a couple more questions. So, and remind me, what is the life of the Simi landfill?
We have until 2063.
2063. Okay. I have another question for you, which is regarding the request that we put in last year's approval about the senior discounts and the organics program. Can you tell me specifically what some of that outreach was?
Well, sure. The council had asked that we make sure that things were available online, so we uploaded the senior discount form. It's an easy click, print, fill it out, and send it over. People can even just take a picture of it with their phone and their ID. We're at lots of in-person events. We take advantage of the Senior Expo. If you remember, from 2022 to 2023, there wasn't a lot of growth. And then in 2023, it exploded. We onboarded over 700 residents. And then the following year, another 154. And then this year, so it's breaching. So we're right now.
How many this year?
So for this year, just give me 1 second. So for 2025, we're at a total of 1,466 residents participating in the senior discount.
Okay, and what was the differential for this year to last year?
25. So
Only 25.
It's about 2 per month, but if you look at the totality of when I started the program, there's over 900 people that have been enrolled. That's more than 27% of Agoura Hills residential population for seniors.
Yeah. But to me, that correlation is that the extended outreach didn't really yield much difference in your enrollment. Is that
I think it's been very steady. I think we saw a really big boom in 2023. I was largely responsible for that. And then in 2024. And then, of course, you will see things taper off. But I think consistent to a month is pretty good. And we take advantage of every opportunity. You can't just ask somebody outright their birth year.
Right.
So we try to do it very delicately, but certainly inquire to make sure that they are taking advantage of every opportunity to save money with us.
Okay, and then what about the organics, bag, no bag?
Okay, so
recycling, things like it's organics and plastics. Like what about the outreach of schooling us all on that?
So I've been in the industry for almost 30 years. So I can tell you that from the beginning of AB 939, it's taken that long for people just to say cans, plastic, cardboard, and paper to put in your recycling, and then to put it in loose, because remember, you used to be able to bag it. And now we're at this juxtaposition with the state where they want us to divert as much as we can from the landfills, of course, to save their life and to save methane from going into our atmosphere. So the outreach is really good. We provide mailers, we provide social media. At all of the events, there's flyers on hand, how to stack your refrigerator, how to keep things in your freezer, what goes where and when. We utilize the new things like cups now can be put into either your recycling or into your food bin. So I think that the outreach is there. It's just about people grasping it. And it's still very new. Even from 2022, it's still so very new, and with all of the changes and legislation coming down, I think we tackle it one day at a time, one question at a time. And I will tell you, since 2023, the questions to us primarily have slowed down. I think we've done a really good job trying to promote it, and when we have to make changes, we have processes in place to fix somebody's boo-boo, so to speak. And we're certainly out there talking to the community, talking to our next generation. We're doing the schools. We try to do as best as we can with the information, and I think we're doing a pretty good job so far.
Okay, thank you. Those were my questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Anston.
I appreciate your answer. I've got to come back to the landfill. Can you tell us, first of all, do you, by using the Simi Valley landfill because it's owned by Waste Management, is there do you have an agreement with National Waste Management that you'll only use their landfills where there is one? I mean, we're trying to understand that because it does seem odd that you're, and I wasn't aware that there's this dramatic of a difference between the Simi Valley landfill and the Calabasas, which Calabasas landfill is only 2 exits up from here, which is about, I don't know, 2 miles. So you've got to explain to me specifically, if you want me to even consider a rate increase, why you're using a dump that's 10 times further than the Calabasas dump and is twice as expensive and increases. And right now you haven't really explained it. And so I need some better explanation for why you're currently doing that.
Well, again, we do utilize the Calabasas landfill, more so for organics. From an operational standpoint, we don't have an agreement that we will only use our facility, and I can share that because in many cities we don't have landfills. It just so happens that we do have a landfill in Simi Valley, which does afford us the opportunity to utilize a facility that is in the name of the same business. But as far as gate rates and rates, we don't get any special treatment. We don't get any special favors. We don't get to pass in line. We sit like everybody else does. As far as the rate difference, what I can say is that operationally, Waste Management has invested billions of dollars on infrastructure for these reasons. We want to be able to have the facilities in order to take care of cities like Agoura Hills for many, many more years to come. And relying on a closer, yet less expensive location with approximately 6 to 9 years, I'd be quite leery in wondering where their rates are going to go in the next couple of years. In order to sustain something like that, they're going to have to put limits at their gate, what they'll be able to receive every day, and they'll put a premium price on that for it as well. As they get closer, with WM, yes, you'll see increases, but they're transparent. We show you. We're happy to discuss it. But I think at this time, to speak to the differences in the rates speaks different to the processes that happen at each landfill. It's much bigger infrastructure at Simi Valley. We do a lot more processing there than they can do at Calabasas. I can't speak to Calabasas because I don't work there and I don't have connections. So outside of that, I can defer back and we can certainly revisit this. But I think from a standpoint, the longevity of having the Simi Valley landfill, recycling center, organics collection being available there is the longest bet that the city can actually guarantee and be happy with is in the long term. We're going to be there for you in the long term where Calabasas landfill can give you 6 to 9 years.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Hi, yes. I have a question. Your request was to have the 2025 rate plus CPI plus operational costs, and our subcommittee is in favor of 3% rise. What was your request for operational costs? How much more than 3% was it?
Well, if we're talking about individual levels for rates, there was a breakdown.
Does staff know?
If you're referring to what we submitted, there was going to be...
I just want to know percentage-wise how much more than 3% it was.
The increase with the SWRA as they submitted it ranges from 6% to 8% because it's based on volume.
Okay, and
Oh,
so
I'm sorry.
our
Versus
subcommittee
the
brought it
three.
down from 6 to 8, 3%.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then on a personal level, I'm confused because I've been reading that milk cartons can no longer go in the recycle. Is that correct?
I'm not sure where you saw that.
It was like in an LA Times article.
Well, remember, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, rules are different. So
Right,
for-
so can we still give you our milk cartons?
Yes, you can.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure.
Those were my questions.
Are there, before I ask my question, are there any other questions from council?
Questions?
Questions for staff?
I have an embarrassing one because the answer is in the report and it's in what we looked at as a subcommittee, but I'm just not finding it quickly and I didn't write it in my notes. Will you remind me what the rate would go to? Like, it is a couple of dollars is my memory and what I'm looking at, but I just wanted to reassure myself and reassure folks that if the council approves this tonight, we're not looking at.
So I can actually answer that if you'd like. So 75% of Agorians have level 1 service, and that's $64.96. It's $1.03 per month is what the difference would be. And because of the MFN, your rate for your level 1 would go to $30.38, which is in line with Westlake Village at $30.38. You're currently $7.60 less than Calabasas. So as Deborah mentioned last year, these small incremental changes will help in the long run so that we're not hitting anybody with anything too hard.
So for 75% of Agoura Hills, it's $1.03 a month.
Correct.
Terrific. And I said this last year, I said this at the subcommittee, and I'll just say it out loud again. That makes me feel great for the 75%. I am concerned about the other 25%, many of whom are in the multifamily, and for whom I think the increase then hits them potentially a little bit harder. So as we look at future rates, I want us also to be paying attention to the folks for whom these increases that are not a part of the most favored nation, most favored city, will be impacted.
Well, certainly, and we certainly take those into consideration when considering that. There are more labor-intensive services that are multifamily and some of our bigger ranches that are not street side or curbside service, so that could be the difference. Hear me?
Sorry, Councilmember Anderson? Oh, now I believe would be the time.
Can you tell me what the increase last year, because I didn't see it in the report, what last year's increase that we agreed to? Because I know we lowered it, or from what was requested to a certain, what was the increase last year?
It actually was consistent with the request before you tonight, so it was 3% SWRA.
Yeah, please. Mayor Pro Tem Klein
That's
Lopez.
similar to the question I was going to ask, which is just in general over the past few years, this is in line with the SWRA. I do remember one year there was no, I believe we didn't approve, but I believe that was only one year and I don't remember why.
Yeah, and Mayor Pro Tem, it looks like that would have been at least longer than 2023.
Okay.
From what we gather, it's been 3% last year, 3% the year before, and then it was a 3 to 5%, looks like, range in 20.
Okay, it must have been a while ago. I don't remember, but I just.
Maybe it was COVID or.
Could have been. Actually, that might be it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ramiro, can you go back a slide? One more slide. That slide, perfect. Regarding the two options, I know you mentioned it, but can you walk through again what the operational cost charge request was for the first option?
Sure, so okay, well, so there's many line items, but we'll go with the 64-gallon example.
For the 75, I guess for the 75% of.
Right. So in that particular case, what we're looking at, Right, so it would have been 20, so the existing price for that, let's say in 2025, is $29.35. And then the 3% across the board is 0.88, so 88 cents. And then if you look at, so these now are going to be the operational costs. For that example, the municipal solid waste disposal increase is 46 cents. The organics disposal increase is 57 cents. And then the recycle disposal increase is 43 cents. And when you add all those up, you get $1.40 more, right? And then when you go to the second option, that's in comparison then to the second option, which is you're adding just the 3%, which is 91 cents. And so what was that number? Yeah, compared to 140. Right, so it would be 31.69 or 31.14, right? Yeah, so what you have is, Mr. Mayor, you would go from, let's say, in the operational cost example, you have a $29.35, that's a base point in 2025, and then you would end off with $31.69, right? In the other scenario, you would end up at $31.14. So
The other scenario being the 3%?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then the MFN kicks in, which then limits it lower.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. That was exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to ask one more time, do the council members have any other questions of staff? Seeing or hearing none, I will now defer to the city clerk. That's all it says.
We do not have any public comment unless, Denise, would you like to speak? So Denise Kane.
Hi. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to highlight some of the goals that you asked from us the last couple of years. And because I've had the pleasure of looking after Agoura Hills for 5 years, I'm quite proud to give you these statistics. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Is that better? Oh, now I can even hear myself. So we don't take any of your goals lightly, and we do try our best to make sure that the community is aware and is ready and prepared for any of the programs and any of the offerings, and especially the events where we'll be for Touch Truck. So across Agoura Hills, special programs that include e-waste, white goods, bulky items, and the at-your-door hazardous waste service collection, we collected nearly 283 tons of material. That means 283 tons of material were kept out of your local landfills. That's roughly the weight of 50 fully loaded moving trucks, or more than 10,000 items that are kept out of your hillsides, streets, and neighborhoods. I'd also like to highlight the success of the At Your Door program. We completed 216 home pickup services from your friends and your neighbors, and that accounted for another 4.5 tons of material. So we provide a nice breakdown for Lewis, and you'll see on that there's a lot of oil and paint. And so our ABOP programs that we also run for the used oil programs are another wonderful, successful program that we've been running for years here in town. With that said, again, if there's any questions about those numbers, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. I think that was your public comment, so we're not allowed to.
Oh, my boss. Thank you.
So seeing that are there any more public comments?
No.
Does any council members have any further questions? Seeing none, we'll now move on to deliberations. For deliberations, I'm going to start with my fellow Public Works Subcommittee member, Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Wolf, and I want to thank our representatives from Waste Management. I want to thank our consultant with, what is it? It is Solid Waste Solutions. You did an excellent job in answering a lot of really in-depth questions for the subcommittee. I want to thank our city staff. And as you can see, there is some discomfort in the costs that we are being asked to give an increase for. That said, through the questions and through the conversation, I am convinced that you have documented that the increases that you have been facing justify the increase in the WRA that you are asking for here. I was glad to be able to, and Mayor Sylvester, thank you for asking for, I'm sorry, Councilmember Sylvester, thank you for asking for the exact percentage to be able to bring it down from, 6 to 8% to 3%, given given that it is $1.03, and as my fellow city council member has pointed out, the inflation is happening, costs are going up, that allowing this increase today would help to prevent a larger shock going forward. And I am glad that we are going to get some further penciling out, because you're saying good things, and some of what you're saying I shouldn't say some of what you're saying, what you're saying makes sense, and I am still left with questions, and so I am glad to know that you are a good partner and then will help us answer those questions so that we can have even more comfort going forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. Now move to Councilmember Anstead.
I appreciate the presentation today, and definitely this is something that we revisit every year. And so I think, first of all, I think for me personally, for my vote today, that I am comfortable with moving forward with the CPI plus 3%, the SWRA at 3% today. However, I don't think that I would be comfortable a year from now if I need to see, I'm asking Waste Management next time they come back to ask for an increase from the city council, or at least from me personally, that I need to see an analysis, a more straightforward analysis on what it costs to go to the Calabasas dump and what it costs to dump in Simi. I need that broken out by current cost and then any increases for that year. And then I need a rationale, if you're still using the Simi Valley dump, why you're using it, and a straightforward rationale that makes financial sense too, not just business sense for Waste Management. Because it's something that our residents are having to take on as an increase every year. And if there's a less expensive way to have the waste dumped for the next 10 years, I would like to consider the less expensive way. And I would like to do that with you because I'm very happy with the services that Waste Management has done. I don't have any negative comments about how Waste Management has conducted business in Agoura Hills, and I would hate to have to think that I needed to go out and look at other haulers because of the fact that there was cost increases with one specific dump and that I didn't feel were warranted. So I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Anstead. Councilmember Sylvester.
Thank you. I'm ready to move forward. I know that our residents are very happy with the services you provide. I like the fact that you're now doing, personal e-waste pickups from individual homes. That makes it so much easier for residents to get rid of stuff rather than have it accumulating for ages, waiting for an event somewhere around the city, and then some people can't make it on that day. So that's most appreciated. I know that Calabasas landfill is coming to an end. As you said, it's 3 to 6 years, and then we're not going to have any choice except to go somewhere else. So we have to factor that in too. And I know I'd like to thank our subcommittee because you did the deep dive into the numbers. Thank goodness. And I'd just like to see that the 6 to 8%, and we're giving them 3. That makes sense to me. So thank you for all your hard work, and to staff for everything you do to keep us on track and make sure we're getting our favored nation status. So thank you for that. And I can move forward with these findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Thank you. This is always a difficult one every year. It's a complicated industry, and I just want to start out by saying that I've been on tours with you, Brian, and with Justin at your Simi and your Sunland facilities, and I laugh when people just say go to the dump. It's a lot more than just dumping. It's a very complicated processing facilities, And it's an industry that, as lay men and women, we're trying our best to wrap our head around. So, you know, I thank you for a lot of your explanation. I'm happy to move forward with this because it is consistent with what we've done in the past. It's part of our contract. I think we negotiated an excellent contract that I'm very proud of our staff and former councils for negotiating. The SWRA is consistent with past years. And like I did say last year, I do think it's important to stay on track with market rates. Because what we don't want is, when our contract is up, to have our residents just absolutely slammed with, you know, this huge increase. When things are really out of market rates, then problems can ensue. So I'm okay with what's before us. I also want to thank our subcommittee. I literally wrote for doing the deep dive, and Councilmember Sylvester took the words right out of my mouth. But I wanted to thank the committee for their deep dive and their advocacy for our residents. First, I do want to say that, you know, like my other council members have said, our residents are very happy with WM. And you show up. You are everywhere. You're at the events. I see you at the events. You're at, you know, community, chamber, everything. So you do a lot of things that I think is really beneficial for the community above and beyond. I really appreciate the at your door service. I have used it. It's fantastic. And the e-waste and hazardous waste is a really important piece for our community. So I wanted to start with those kudos. I do want to tell you the two things that I'm concerned about. And I want to go back to the fact that I know this is a complicated industry. So I don't really quite understand how and why waste might go to Simi over Calabasas, and how that affects or will affect in the future our ratepayers. You know, I know that Calabasas has a more limited lifespan than Simi. I'm not understanding exactly how that affects this year's contract. So again, that's just the industry knowledge that I think I need to understand a little bit better. So I agree with my fellow council members that if you can help us understand that for the next time we do this, I think that would make us feel better that we're understanding. Because I'm not only concerned about the cost, I'm concerned about the climate impact. I mean, to haul trash into another county on 2 freeways, you know, farther than it needs to go for that much waste has a climate impact as well. And we have a climate action and adaptation plan that we take very seriously, and waste is one of the pieces of our plan. And so I really want to understand how and why waste may have to go farther than I understand it needs to. And so I'll let you deal with the subcommittee and particularly Mr. Adeva, who worked very hard on our climate action and adaptation plan, because that's really important to us, and I want to make sure I understand that from that point of view as well. And then, you know, I do want to reiterate and continue as part of our requirement to approve this, the outreach for both senior programs and organics. It doesn't sound like the additional outreach, it sounds like at first it was great, but now it's kind of, you know, leveled out. 2 a month seems to be the amount, whether we're doing extended outreach or not. And I know it's sensitive, you can't just go and ask people their age, but, you know, we are aging in place. In Agoura Hills, we have a lot of families that are, for various reasons, not moving. Their kids are gone. They're going into that age group. Their incomes are becoming fixed. You know, they're retiring, and so I'm hoping maybe you'll brainstorm with Amy. I think about my parents who live in Agoura Hills. They're in their 80s. They don't go to concerts in the park. They are not online. Like, how do we reach my parents? I ask that question to Nate all the time. How do we reach my parents? They're not getting it any other way. So I would love for you, and particularly Amy, who's so in touch with the seniors in Agoura Hills, to maybe brainstorm how we can reach the seniors a little bit more than we've been able to. And then the organics as well. I do think that the messages you send individually, I'm going to rat out my parents. Please don't tell them not to watch this. But you know, they were bagging their recycles, their plastics and their you know, cans, and they got a very lovely note from Waste Management with a picture of their can being put into they were totally outed because they didn't know. They thought they were helping by putting all of their stuff in a bag and putting it in the recycle, and then in the blue bin, and then putting it in, and then Waste Management sent them a letter saying you're not supposed to do that. And I think those are the kinds of things that one-on-one, you know, it wasn't a threatening letter. It was just an educational letter that, you know, we really don't want it bagged for this reason. So more of that, I'm hoping. Again, not to scare people or penalize people, but it was an educational moment for them, and I hope they don't mind that I shared that. So I'd love to still see that in our condition of approval, as we did last year, more outreach, in addition to what you've already done, which I know is a lot of work. So with that, I'm ready to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. And starting my Oscar thank you speech to Kim, Ramiro, and to Louis for your work on this, and to Councilmember Anderson on the subcommittee. It was a lot of work. I'm ready to move forward with the second option, and I want to be clear to our residents and to this council that what was requested was a higher percentage, and we went with this percentage because the comment that was said twice by two council members is sticker shock, that if we don't do anything, this will be a worse outcome further down the line. And it's really, Waste Management is facing a lot of increases in fuel costs, inflation, tipping fees, infrastructure improvements, and that they do need to keep up with that. But it is important for us as a council to look out for our residents. And so I feel that this, the rate plus the CPI plus the 3% is a way to bridge both of those and accomplish both of those things. And so with that, I am ready to move forward with that. So I will now call for a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation. Will the makers of the motion and the second state your names?
Councilmember Anderson makes the motion.
Councilmember Sylvester second.
Thank you. I will now defer to the city clerk.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Anstead.
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval 5-0.
Thank you. This is now the council staff. Are there any comments from staff? Amy?
Thank you, Mayor Wolf. I would like to take a moment and announce that we are about to lose one of our longest-serving employees, Cynthia Polich. She is our administrative assistant up at the Agoura Hills Recreation and Event Center, and she is retiring. She announced it about a month and a half ago, but Monday, February 2nd is her last day. 40 years, employee number 6 is officially coming off the books. So I would like to thank Cynthia for, speaking of public servant, I mean, 40 years serving the city of Agoura Hills is, in my mind, I know, right? It's admirable. I have a lot of respect for her, and earlier today at a luncheon, the employees celebrated her, and I quietly admitted I'm a little nervous about all that institutional knowledge walking out the door on Monday, but I would like to wish her good luck. She has also been a resident for that many years, for 40 years, so she really was an asset on all levels. So on behalf of the department and the city, I want to thank her for her service, for her time and effort and passion for serving the community. There's a lot of seniors that leaned on her every day. So we are going to miss her, and I want to wish her good luck. She's moving literally about 48 hours after she retires to go be with her daughters and her new granddaughter. So she's really excited. So thank you, Cynthia Polich. We're going to miss you, and the city of Agoura Hills won't be the same. So thank you.
Are there any other comments from staff? Seeing or hearing none, I'm now going to turn it over to our city attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a clarification for the record. So with regards to agenda item number 7, I believe council moved staff recommendation, but the staff recommendation was to provide direction to staff regarding approval, modification, or denial of the requested SWRA increase. So I believe the council's intent was to approve the 3% rate. So I just wanted to state that for the record. If you wanted to modify that, then let me know. Otherwise, I believe your motion was to approve the more affordable rate for the city. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, as the maker of the motion, I apologize for not being precise, and to our
So
city
it's-
attorney, I very much appreciate the clarification. And
Yeah,
yes.
3% SWRA, the second option in staff recommendation.
Thank you for that clarification. With that, are there any comments from the city council? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Move to adjournment. The next regular city council meeting is scheduled for 6 p.m. on February 11th in the city council chambers of the Civic Center located at 30001 Ladyface Court in the beautiful city of Agoura Hills, California. The meeting is now adjourned.